Hi, my name's Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and welcome to the Montclair Film Festival in conversation with Sienna Miller. This is an actor who has excelled at stage and screen, appearing in films like Factory Girl, American Sniper, American Woman. She will next be seen in the film Wander Darkly, for which she is earning some of the best reviews of her career, which is saying a lot. Please join me in welcoming Sienna Miller. Hi.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for being here and coming from this lovely background you have.
Yeah, you're in my bedroom, which is very, it's where the Wi-Fi is best. Oh, the planet these days. Yeah.
That's what they should change this conversation title to, In the Bedroom with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I actually want to go back to the very beginning. When did you know you wanted to be an actor?
It's a little alarming, but I think from a very, very young age, that was all I wanted to do. My mother was very creative. She actually taught yoga and the Alexander technique to a lot of actors. And I think I grew up kind of in the proximity of that. She then worked at the Lee Strasberg Institute in London. And we would always go to the theater and the ballet. And I think from about 3 or 4, I said, that's what I want to do. The idea of sort of dressing up and playing for a living really appealed to me.
Were there certain actors you admired growing up or people you wanted to emulate, or was it one of those things where you just sort of loved every great performance?
I mean, I think the first kind of movie I saw Some Like It Hot when I was about 5, and she was, as I still is, just the most breathtaking presence. So that was the first sort of love affair that I had with an actor. But as I've gotten older, you know, it's an endless, bottomless list of people that I admire, and a lot of theatre really as well, seeing people on stage.
I know that there's no one real path to becoming an actor. But what do you sort of consider your first break into this world?
My first break was probably my first film, which was called Layer Cake. I'd done a BBC series that was small, and then I did a show that was on Fox called Keen Eddie, and it was just 1 season. So I sort of had dipped a toe in, but it felt like within 2 months I shot Layer Cake and Alfie, which were 2 sort of big budget films, and it was just a process of auditioning. I mean, there was a lot of rejection before I got those parts, and there was some waitressing and, you know, the usual stories, but it was fortunate. And then from there, I think it happened quite quickly from there.
I mean, those are 2 big movies in 1 year. You must have been pretty good at auditioning, I'm guessing.
I don't know. I think I was definitely better then than I am now. I don't know. I think I was really blissfully unaware of what the world was. I hadn't gone to a traditional drama school, so I didn't really know about competition. I had no concept. I was naive. I didn't know how many people were going up for things. So I think I just walked in with confidence that's gradually been whittled away bizarrely as I've gotten older. But there was this, I think it was so exciting, and I knew that this was what I wanted to do, and so there was a real enthusiasm that maybe was a positive thing. Yeah.
And I know that after those 2 movies, you sort of got dubbed the new It Girl, which was a title you didn't really love, did you?
I felt like I was more than that. Yeah, It Girl feels sort of, I don't even know what it means. It feels sort of insignificant and a little bit frivolous, and no, I wanted to be a serious actor. I just happened to fall in love with my extremely famous co-star of the second movie I did, and that superseded anything else. That kind of attention that was public came before I'd ever had a film out, and that was problematic. That took a while to overcome, but you know, I had a wonderful time as well. I can't complain.
And you kind of got to have fun with that image, I feel, a little bit in the Steve Buscemi movie Interview, where you played a tabloid fixture soap star. Was it sort of fun to do that and turn it on its head?
It was. I mean, I actually said yes to that movie before I'd even read the script. I think the idea of working with him was so exciting. But no, I thought it was brilliant. It was ironic to sort of look at the perception of you, and then, you know, obviously in that film, if anyone's seen it, but she kind of wins. And that was actually one of the greatest film experiences I've had. We shot the whole thing in 9 nights. It was 30 pages of dialogue each take. So it was really like doing a play, and what a great sparring partner Steve is.
It's really also about the danger of underestimating this woman, which it's so much fun to watch, and it's such a great film. I mean, I had no idea it was shot in 9 days. That's incredible.
9 nights.
9 nights.
Yeah.
Wow. And
yeah.
it I actually watched it again recently, and it holds up so well. It feels like eerily prescient.
Good. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I will take your word for it.
No, it really feels like it was ahead of its time in sort of caring about the wrong things when we look at, quote unquote celebrities or people who are in the public eye.
But I think as women, we also can relate to being underestimated, perpetually underestimated. I mean, it's something that can resonate with anyone, but it was a lot of fun, that part.
And you went on to make, this is just for me, if you don't mind, but I love the movie Casanova, which was one of your early films with Heath Ledger. And one of the first times I remember seeing you in such a great role. And if you'll just indulge me, can I ask you what that experience was like?
That experience was heaven, because we lived in Venice for 5 months. And every morning I would get a call saying your boat will pick you up at 5 a.m. And it would still be kind of dark, but the sun would be rising, and I'd have a blanket on a boat, and I'd go across the canal, the Grand Canal, to pick up Heath. And this was pre-iPhone, so he had his Walkman and 2 headphones, and we'd share a headphone and listen to music as the sun was rising over Venice. And it was about as dreamy as a filmmaking experience can get, but also logistically really complicated. Camera equipment on boats, obviously there are no cars in that city. It was hysterical in moments, sort of things flooding. When we got to shoot in St. Mark's Square, which is obviously a hugely iconic location, the days that they gave us permission to shoot were the days where it floods, so we actually had waders on. And they started with the wide shot, but by the time they were doing our close-ups, we were literally up to our waists in water. It was lots of laughs. He was a great friend, and I feel so lucky to have been able to spend any amount of time with him. And fun. I love period movies. Tom Stoppard wrote it. I mean, it was great. It was great.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking, you're having to do everything you just described in a period costume.
Yeah.
So it had to be even harder than one can imagine.
I can even say towards the end of that, I was a little sick of Venice, which is saying something. I just wanted some sense of urbanity. I started to binge watch Sex and the City, and it was just water everywhere. I was kind of longing for a city, but it will always hold a really special place in my heart for that memory.
Have you been back since? I've never been.
Oh, I have been. Oh, you have to go. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. I've been many times. Yeah.
I've been all over Italy, but for some reason I've never made it to Venice. And
now it's empty. You should try and get there somehow.
It's not a bad idea. I bet flights are cheap. I feel like a real turning point, at least early in your career, was Factory Girl, which really got people to see you in a new light because you played Edie Sedgwick. Did that feel like a turning point for you?
It did, in so much as it was such a challenging, iconic character. It was the first time I think I realized that I was doing the right profession. Personally, I felt like I overcame something. I felt incredibly connected to it. It was a very method experience. Guy Pearce, who played Warhol, and I, we really wanted to jump and fully immerse, and so we really lived it. And I'd never done that before. I'd sort of been in character on set, but I don't know that we ever really came out of character for the whole thing. And it was just incredibly challenging, and I loved her. I loved that she was this sort of performance artist, and again, underestimated as a woman, and even posthumously is seen as sort of, what was she? I think she was incredibly influential to a very prevalent art scene that you still see the effects. I mean, I think Instagram is Warhol, essentially. And she was really pivotal to that movement, but I felt taken over by her in moments, and that was scary and exciting, and it was well received, and that was nice.
Do you find that happens even at the end of the day when you leave the set? Would you take her with you?
Yes, and after shooting, it took a while to kind of come down from that. She's so captivating, and the world was so fascinating, and we obviously spent a lot of time with people who had survived the Silver Factory, the few that were left, and they were, the most extraordinary characters you can imagine. Bridget Berlin, who died sadly recently, but she became a great friend, and they all loved to talk on the phone, and they would come and visit the set. So it really felt like, in many ways, they wanted to recreate that environment, minus the rampant hedonism. Obviously, we were working extremely hard, but it felt necessary. It was the first time I played a real character, and I felt like to do that justice, you have to sort of morph.
I'm actually really curious about that because you've played real people a number of times. I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Lost City of Z, American Sniper, most recently probably in The Loudest Voice, where you played poor Beth Ailes. I'm sort of curious. How does your approach differ from when you're creating a character from scratch, or a fictional character, to when you're portraying a real person? Do you have a preference?
I love playing real people. I love the kind of forensic research that you have to do. I love studying a walk and a voice. And it's really fun to create that yourself as well. And you get to take liberties where you might not otherwise. But I do feel that there's something about studying one person that existed and getting underneath their skin. But mostly from a technical perspective, vocally, I love the vocal work that you have to do for that kind of thing.
I know you're technically American born, but you were mostly raised in England. Why are the Brits so good with accents?
I don't know. I think that I can think of some American actors that are pretty fantastic. I think Renee Zellweger's Bridget Jones was about the most specifically English. She nailed that. Gwyneth Paltrow does a great English accent. I'm not sure. I think we probably grew up watching American TV.
Okay. One of your probably most iconic roles playing a real person was you played Tippi Hedren in The Girl, for which you earned a Golden Globe, a BAFTA TV, and a Critics' Choice Award nomination. Obviously, this movie detailed Alfred Hitchcock's obsession with his leading lady. And it really was like one of the first films I can remember taking a look at how toxic these relationships can be. I'm hoping you've never personally had that experience with the director, but I think everyone can kind of relate to that dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that with certain directors, there's an element of control, and I tend to respond really positively to nurturing warmth and support. But there are directors who have gotten performances out of me by doing the opposite. Nothing on the level of Hitchcock and Tippi. That was a really, really traumatizing and appalling experience for her. Not only how he treated her in the making of those films, but in the aftermath. He kept her under contract, wouldn't release her to work with Godard and Truffaut, etc., who were all trying to hire her, but just kept her for 10 years under this contract and watched her grow old without making anything, and sabotaged a career. It was very sadistic. Thankfully, I think the world has changed enough where if anybody even attempted that kind of abuse, there is an army of women that would come out and fight it. And I feel very fortunate to be working in these times, because I think that story that happened to Tippi is not uncommon of that era. You really belonged to the studio that you were signed to, and essentially to the director. Yeah.
I mean, I think even going back 5 or 10 years ago, you could probably see stories like that. And I feel like there's been a real change just in the last few years. I don't know if it's like that from your perspective. You would probably have a better idea.
No, 1,000%. Things are changing and evolving, and there's still a long way to go, but it's vastly different from when I first started working, where I was very fortunate that I never had any sort of form of sexual abuse, or there was no transaction offered, thank God. But there was yelling and there was inappropriate behavior. But I do remember when I was younger going for auditions, and you'd do the tape and they'd seem sort of disinterested, but then they'd make you turn around and they'd film your whole body and sort of zoom in on the bits and just sort of standing facing a wall and feeling so vulnerable. You're 21 years old, 20 years old, 19. I think people are a lot more careful. And while I have strong opinions about social media and what that's done to our culture, I do think that it does connect the world in a way where that kind of abuse can be exposed very quickly. And that's essential.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you on any social media?
I'm not.
It's probably wise.
I'm not. I tried. I mean, I've been sort of flirting with the idea. I think that the world is moving in a way where that's probably essential in terms of my work. And I think of the small movies I've done and how I could have supported them if I had had access to that kind of thing. I'm mulling it over, but it doesn't sit too well with me.
I mean, that's probably a very healthy choice. I will say, I think that Instagram seems to be, of all of them, the nicest or the most yes.
The Twitter sphere I would never go near. I don't know how. I mean, I would. Yes, that's a whole other world.
Absolutely, I totally understand. I'm curious though, talking about all these real people you've played, have you ever gotten to meet any of them while you were making the project?
Tippi and I were very close. I spent a lot of time with her.
Okay.
Yeah, and I adore her. Who else have I played? Obviously, no, Lossitive Zede died by that point. Who else? Edie, no. Elizabeth Ailes, no. I would have liked, but I understand why she wasn't open to meeting. I'm trying to think who else there was. I know
American Sniper or Foxcatcher?
Yeah, Tara, I spend a lot of time with.
Tara,
Played an American sniper who I adore, and she was amazing to have as a resource for that story that was so heartbreaking and so personal to her. And yes, Foxcatcher, I also met. Why am I blanking? It's terrible. I'm blanking on my character.
There's so many. I can't believe
No, this is awful. Anyway, yes, she was on set a lot, which was scary but also useful.
Yeah.
Since you got to hang out with Tippi Hedren, did you get to meet her big cats?
I did.
Did you ever go to her preserve? No way!
I did. So I'm trying to fix this shadow from my sunny window. No, I did. I met the big cats. That was where I first met her. I drove out to the ranch and it was astounding. It was amazing. She lives amongst these, tigers and lions and ligers, and yeah, she's pretty formidable as a woman. She's fantastic. Yes.
Did she give you any feedback on your performance? Because I mean, I gotta imagine that's the one review that matters.
It's scary. It's scary when they're around to critique it, but she was very happy with the film and with the way she was portrayed, and I think relieved to have that out there, to have her side told. I think it was really important. She's just the most loving, supportive, amazing woman, and I was pregnant for a lot of the press that we did, and then she came when I had my daughter and met my daughter and gave me beautiful gifts, and I think she's astounding. I love her.
Wow, that's so great. I've heard other stories where people weren't pleased, that someone was portraying them. So it's so nice to hear that.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure there are some negative reviews from other people that I've played, but I haven't had contact with them.
I actually want to talk about your work on stage, because you've gotten to play some really iconic roles. You've been Sally Bowles in Cabaret. You've done Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams. Was theater always part of the attraction of being an actor?
That was where my heart always lay. That was what I wanted to do more than anything. And I think if I was really honest, that experience of live theater is incomparable to anything else. I think if I could only rehearse plays and not do them, a rehearsal room of a play is my favorite place to be. But also it's ageless. I think the roles for women are amazing on stage, and that's a career that can go on and on and on. I mean, if Glenda Jackson was just King Lear on Broadway, that's sort of where I want to end up in my career.
When was the last time you were on stage? I know we're in this, terrible shutdown, and Broadway is affected more than anything, I think.
It was 3 years ago. I did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Yeah, so I played.
Wow, another iconic role
in the West End, and it was an amazing part, an astounding part, and a really complicated, difficult play. But she's just one of the great characters. And I was supposed to do a play, and then COVID hit, so hopefully that'll happen next year.
On Broadway?
We'll see. Yeah, on Broadway, something on Broadway and something in London. I like to do them every 2 years. That's my goal, to go back. And I think it's a great space to fine tune your instrument. You just get exponentially better by the repetition of doing that, by the experience of sitting with one piece of material for that long. What it begins as, night one, and where it ends up after 100 shows is just a vastly different thing. And so it teaches you that the more you sort of work on something, and it teaches you how to work on a text. I love it. I love it.
Was your first professional play As You Like It?
Yes.
Right out of the gates.
Yes.
I mean, I love the thrill of live theater, but with that comes, the opportunity that anything that can happen, which is also kind of scary. I mean, do you ever worry about stage fright or, freezing or going up on your lines?
Of course, it's the most anxiety-inducing experience of all time. The first preview, I am a wreck before that show. And I don't really understand this, but there is something about putting yourself into your nightmare situation and forcing yourself to do it and getting through it that is really rewarding. That being said, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And then, of course, exhilarating if you kind of survive that, like jumping out of a plane or something. But things go wrong. I've got serious giggles on stage. That's happened twice. I once had to come down a staircase backwards because I was laughing so much. And this is not to say that I don't take my job seriously, but of course something happens backstage and you lose it. And once I go, I can't really pull back. But what's amazing is an audience just thinks that's what's supposed to happen. They sort of buy anything. There was one set of giggles that ended up in the entire audience also getting the giggles and then giving us a standing ovation for laughing. That was a good experience. But anything can happen. I smashed my head open towards the end of Cabaret, and then finished the play with blood dripping down my face, which sort of works for Sally Bowles. But yeah, there's anything can happen. Yeah.
Is there a dream role you have on stage? Yeah, you know, a famous iconic role you'd love to tackle?
Oh my God, so many. Medea. Really dark, but probably an incredible thing to do. I would love to do more Shakespeare. I would like to play. I think Tennessee Williams for women is amazing. I should probably do Blanche at some point.
Oh yeah.
Eleanor of Aquitaine. I've always thought she was an amazing character. I mean, the list is endless, but I tend to do these really big classic plays. I would also love to do something contemporary. I'm trying to fix this shadow, but it's not happening. And a new play with the writer there in the room, and you know, that would be a good experience too. So that was one of the things I was looking at, was something contemporary.
I would love to see you do Measure for Measure if you're going to do more Shakespeare.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and again, so timely, I feel.
Absolutely, that's a good idea. Oh, I'll run with that one.
I want to talk about some of your recent work, because in the last few years, you've really earned a lot of acclaim for things like Showtime's The Loudest Voice. And last year, they released American Woman, which also was incredibly acclaimed. And I guess I never really put this together before, but I was just reading somewhere that was your first leading role on film.
It was the first time I'd sort of solely carried a film without a male co-star. Yeah, I definitely played big parts in things, but not single-handedly sort of in every scene, which I was in American Woman. And that's probably a function of the way that the world and our industry has changed. You know, I think there's more opportunities for female-driven stories with female leads. It was scary, but it was also, again, exhilarating to be able to map a character out in its entirety and to have that kind of responsibility. I felt really ready for it.
Well, I mean, it was such a challenging role because you saw this character's journey over, I think, 10 years, and so emotionally grueling. I mean, you know, you talk about taking your characters home with you. What was it like to be in that headspace while filming?
It's funny because it was such heavy material, but also less about the grief of what that experience would be, which is the unimaginable, losing a child, but more about the resilience of the human spirit. So I feel like while there were moments of intense grief, there was also moments of real strength. I loved that woman. I loved that she got to become, through her own courage and her own what is the word I can't think of, but resilience, I suppose, that she emerged as, she's someone you probably judged at the beginning of the movie, but had earned your full respect by the end. And I think that that's something that men get to do often in films. And I hadn't had that kind of an opportunity. And I love the challenge of watching her grow. And yeah, I don't know, I loved it. It was so actually the experience was pretty joyful because I was exhausted, but also exhilarated by watching this woman become the woman, emerging as who she always should have been.
Yeah. I also feel like men have been doing this for a while, but it's a character that gets to make what people might call unlikable choices. You know, men have been allowed to be unlikable on screen, but there's kind of this myth that I think we've sort of done away with, that women can't do that. And it was such a fascinating character to follow.
Yeah, and also this pocket of life, or this part of the world, and this kind of woman that's never looked at, you know, spending time with a woman who's kind of unseen in the world. And how interesting every life is if you get myopic and sort of examine it. But yeah, if men are unlikable, they're kind of cool in movies. People at first are like, oh,
exactly.
What a terrible. And then to sort of change their minds, it was very rewarding.
I feel sort of similarly about your character in Wander Darkly. This is such a beautiful film. It felt almost like watching a poem, if that makes sense. Yeah. For people who haven't seen it yet, they can see it at the Montclair Film Festival. But a couple played by you and Diego Luna are in a car accident, and your character sort of revisits her life in this space between life and death. How did this role find its way to you, and what attracted you to the character of Adrian?
I share an agent with Diego, and he was attached to it, and I'm not sure where they were at in a casting process. They were thinking about somebody, but she sort of snuck me the script, and I read it and was in pieces at the end. And I think what drew me to it, aside from wanting to work with Diego and us being friends for a long time and trying to find something to do together, was the idea that the idea of going back to the inception of a relationship and analyzing the moments, the pivotal moments where it goes wrong. I think that what I find most interesting in life is relationships, the dynamics between not only platonic relationships but romantic relationships, and the ways in which people struggle, and just to be able to go back and sort of break that down. It's often really internal work. To do that with a collaborator, as in your husband, to have that experience, I thought would be really interesting cinematically, and also it felt like a very intense thing to explore. I think I'm drawn to that kind of intensity. Yeah. I also think I'm done with grief now.
Really?
I'm ready for just some like singing and dancing and a bit of levity. But it was I knew it would be extremely challenging, and it was very hard.
Did you go straight from American Woman into this, or did you do anything in between? Because that's grueling.
I'm trying to remember. I went from American Woman 5 days later into rehearsals for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. That was grueling. There was a gap before. There was a gap.
Okay. Yeah. So I hope you, I know you did 21 Bridges. I don't know if that was in between, but hopefully that was a little more lighthearted.
Straight after Wonder Darkly. Yeah. So that was wow. Moment. Yeah.
I mean, Wander Darkly it's really in many ways a two-hander with you and Diego. And you mentioned that you were friends before, but so much of this movie hinges on your chemistry. Did you find that was instantaneous when you worked together? I'm sure it helped knowing one another.
We knew each other and we'd always got along, and so that did help. It was also such a difficult space to sit in for my character. She's so disorientated and so confused, and Diego's such a gregarious and warm, loving person that I was really fortunate that he just doesn't have an ego. There was nothing kind of energetically that he brought to set that was a hindrance. He's jovial and kind, and so I think we both had to really lean on each other because the material was so hard. We just got along, and this it often happens. I haven't had too many terrible experiences with co-stars, but he's about as egoless as they come, and I think that was really helpful.
I mean, as I said, your chemistry is so amazing, and sometimes for whatever reason, you might even like the person, but the chemistry, isn't there. Yes. Is that something you can sense when you're working on the project, and how do you handle that?
There are some actors that I think are really consumed by the technical aspect of what's going on around them. I've never been someone who's sort of curious about what lens is being used or where the lights are. I just try to stay in my job, which is to be as truthful as possible in the moment. But no, I think it's something that kind of happens once it's absorbed by what used to be film and is now often digital space. But it's just an energy thing that I felt like, God, I got on so well with that person. It's great, but it just doesn't work, or vice versa. We did not get along. Chemistry is incredible. So it's part of the magic of movies that, they used to do these chemistry reads. I haven't done one for a while, but I understand in some ways why that happens.
Oh, I totally understand. I'm always kind of surprised when I hear a movie was cast without a chemistry read. But I guess you really just never know.
Yeah, one of those magic things.
You talked about how your character in this is sort of disoriented. She's revisiting her life, and it's not told in a linear fashion. For you as an actress, how did you sort of keep track of her journey, especially where she's at emotionally from scene to scene?
That was really hard. It was one of the most impossible things to follow, because I tend to be really drawn to sort of being, as I just said, but really natural in something. This required us to be in a scene as it was in the past, and then to step out of that moment and analyze it from the present, looking at us in the past. It was impossible. It was impossible, and it required huge trust in our director, Tara Mealy, who, this story was incredibly personal to her. In many ways, we were playing her and her husband. So to have that touchstone was incredibly useful. but it was a leap of faith. And there were moments where I was like, there is no way this is gonna work. This just feels absurd. You know, you're talking about it and you're in the moment, and then you say, no, you didn't say that, you actually said this. And breaking not the fourth wall essentially, but coming out of where you are and shifting was scary. It was really scary, whilst also being in this deep state of grief, confusion, loss, which is probably the state that the entire world is in this year. So it's maybe a good time for a movie like this to come out. I think everybody can relate to Adrian's disorientedness.
Speaking of Tara, she did such a fantastic job with this movie, and I didn't really think about it till now, but we're seeing a lot more female filmmakers, which is really refreshing. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to work with many female directors.
The first ever movie I did that didn't actually ever come out, I did with a female filmmaker who I'm still very close to. I worked with a woman, Tippi Hedren. Again, that movie didn't come out, but it was a huge movie called Hippie Hippie Shake. And I don't ever know what really went wrong, because it was a good movie with a good cast. And then Tara, yeah, this is it. This is the one that will actually be seen. It's funny, you know, it's such an undernurtured, undernourished part of our industry that is changing. This was a female, every producer was a female, the cinematography was a woman, the first assistant director was a woman, the boom operator was a woman. It was really heavily female environment, and that was a first. You know, to see 51% of the population represented on a set is something that really I would like to see more of, and you know, was a really great experience.
I mean, I don't mean to be reductive, but did it feel differently as an actor to be surrounded by so many women?
It did. It was just a foreign environment. It was just nothing I'd experienced before. Obviously there were men around too, but it was dominated by women, and that was exciting, you know, to be amongst those people. I mean, the creative team, the producers are phenomenal, but just to have a woman, especially a woman who really felt personally attached to this story. Essentially it was her story, so that was it was lovely. And there's a level of empathy and understanding and intuition that I respond well to. Yeah, I think it should be more split 50-50 than it has certainly been in the past.
I feel like we're starting to see more and more female storytellers, which is exciting. And I think I read that you're interested in optioning some works, or maybe you already have. Are you interested in producing? And I know you said you're not interested in lenses, but maybe doing more work behind the camera?
I definitely want to start producing. I've been reading books to option. I now have a dialogue with the lit department of WME, which is my agency, and I get sent advanced copies of things. And I think this is a product of something gendered in me. I feel sort of, how can I take that on, or do I deserve that? I've also done, I don't know how many movies by this point, but I do feel like I would love to direct something, and have been exploring something that is in very nascent stages of development. But I also don't mind putting myself out there and failing. You know, I think as women, we do underestimate ourselves. I think I've been underestimated as an actor. I feel scared to even step into another sphere. But I do feel creatively, I think especially this year with this virus and not working and not having things to be working on, and being in an industry that's so collaborative, and feeling like I wish I had something else, because I need an outlet for this creativity and the energy that I have, that I channel to my work. So yes, I think 2020 is a wash. Like, I'm just right, this year never happened. 2021, however, I'm going to come out fighting, and I want to establish my production company. I'm thinking about names. I need to find someone great to collaborate with in that, and yes, hopefully get this directorial debut off the ground.
Would you direct yourself as an actor, or do you want to do one thing at a time?
People have asked that a lot. I you know, the role in this is something that is definitely within my realm of what I could and would like to do. I would not want to direct myself straight out of the bat. No.
Really?
I think I understand what I want the actor to do at this part, but I also feel like sitting in an edit with myself for however long that would take is just not going to be a fun experience. But maybe in time, we'll see. I definitely wouldn't want the first thing. I think that the dialogue with an actor, that would be what would be most fulfilling about the directorial experience. So sort of having a conversation with myself, maybe not.
Do you still feel you're sort of underestimated as an actor? I feel like particularly the last 5 or 6 years has, you know, people have really seen what you're capable of.
Yeah, it's hard to have a real perception of oneself. I tend to not engage with that side of things whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a totally normal person who has this kind of extraordinary job that is definitely a public thing, but I don't spend any time thinking or worrying about it. I do feel like the work speaks for itself, but if I look back to being 22 and doing Factory Girl, I felt like I was so proud of that performance then too. I think as the publicity has died down to some degree, or the intense focus on my romantic life has dwindled, it's allowed people to see me more as the characters that I'm playing. And I think it can be really inhibiting when people have such a strong perception of who they think you are, to convince them that you're somebody else. And I'm hugely relieved that my life is much quieter and with much less, paparazzi stalking and harassing. And you grow up, I do this for myself. I do this because I love to tell stories. I know that my intentions are pure, and I know that I work extremely hard, and just with time, as with everything, these things just fade away. So hopefully that will speak for itself, the work I do.
I mean, it's such a difficult business, and even from a young age, you seem to have a good sense of yourself and how to navigate it, even though you were in this extreme situation. How have you sort of, I guess, kept a level head through it all?
I think just resilience. I don't know. I think there were moments where it was way too much. I did take some time off away from everything around the time that my daughter was born. And that was a really nice moment to regroup, not only being redefined or reshaped by the experience of motherhood, which I think forced people to not be able to call me frivolous anymore. It's like, oh, she's a mother, respect her, fine. Because things really did turn around after I became a mother. But I don't know. I think just tenacity. I don't know. English grit. Turn down the noise. Don't give it any attention. It's out of your control. I don't know.
And staying off of social media probably helps. You mentioned that you had done some movies that never saw releases, which I have to imagine, I know it's part of the job, but also that has to be heartbreaking. Are there films that you would really like people to see, or maybe something you did make that didn't get the attention you'd like it to get?
I don't spend too much time sort of thinking about that. I wonder how common it is that this happens. I think it was bad luck more than anything else. The first one was so small that it's not uncommon that it wouldn't get released. And Hippie Hippie Shake, it's I think it's still now #1 on my IMDb page because it never came out, but it's not going to come out. No, I'm fine with what's happening where I'm at. I think I'm all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also seems like, I don't know if necessarily the roles are better in independent films, or it's just something that you've been attracted to. You've done obviously big budget movies, but do you find that you're more attracted to the independent film scene?
I do love the experience. I love independent cinema. I think my heart would probably lie there. But there is something really fun about being on a massive set with an enormous budget, and it feels sort of how whatever your imagination was of the industry, it's not a struggle. It's got the support it needs. It's going to come out. There's a big engine behind it. But I sort of like the gamble of making independent cinema. I do think the roles tend to be more interesting. I do feel like the films are more aligned with the films that I would watch. Not always, but then there are movies that are made and they're not independent, and they sort of have that sensibility. Marriage Story feels like an independent movie, but had a big engine behind it. That's sort of the world I would love to be in as much as what I'm doing now.
I mean, I know Wander Darkly is an independent film. Mainly I know that because it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, but it actually looks great. And I have a feeling it was made for much cheaper than one would guess, and probably on a shorter shooting schedule. And I have to imagine that only added to the challenge of things.
We shot that movie in 24 days, and it was,
oh my God.
I think 17-hour days. I was in everything. It was really challenging. It really was. It did not feel like anything like what it looks like. I think that the visual effects that they did were astounding. I think Tara had a total vision for it that was in her mind. But it was a struggle. But the wonderful thing about doing independent films is that that everybody's there because they want to be there, not because they're being paid, not because it's going to necessarily advance their career in any way, but because they believe in the story that they're telling. And so there's a collaborative aspect to it, and a sort of earnest, like an honestness to it that I find creatively inspiring.
There's so many locations just alone. That like baffles me. You could do that in 24 days.
I know. The dolphins, She really shot LA.
Right.
LA is a big character in this film, and she shot it in a way that I'd never seen it before. I think it's beautiful. And Carolina Costa was our DP, and she's phenomenal. But I had no idea when we were making it. I was really surprised when I saw it that it looked the way that it did. Yeah.
I was actually kind of curious about that because, like I said, it doesn't follow a traditional structure. And, you know, I don't know if you really, sometimes you don't know what movie you're signing up for. So what was it like the first time you got to see it? Especially, I don't know if you were able to see it with an audience at Sundance.
I did see it. I saw it. That was where I saw it. Yeah, at Sundance. And it's always great to watch something with an audience. And this, I think, is such a moving story. It's sad, but it's also uplifting and life affirming. And I guess maybe it's something to do with theatre and the experience of a live. I love being in that room. Obviously, if it's well received, it's much better than if people are like, walking out, not so good. But this was, it was collectively a very, very moving experience. People were really, weeping at the end, and that was lovely. Mm-hmm. It's always a little terrifying. I haven't actually seen every movie I've ever made, but
really?
That, once it gets to Sundance, it's exciting.
I mean, it was so well received at the festival. I remember so many people talking about it that, you know, that has to be a good feeling because, like you said, it could always go the other way.
Yes, and it has, and it will again. But you know, take those moments that do work well and sort of bottle them.
I know, like I said, we're you know, sort of in this strange period where a lot of people aren't really allowed to work, but what's sort of been keeping you going during the shutdown? Are you reading things? Are you watching things? I know you're probably doing Zoom school, which is something I can't even imagine.
No?
I did the Zoom school. I'm very, very fortunate to say that I'm not doing it now because we had to move to England for the school year. I'm not in England right now. I had to come back to New York to get some more bits and bobs for the house and a dog that I need to travel back with. But no, we moved to London because I'm starting shooting something from November till April there. And the only way to make that work was to all relocate. So my daughter is in school in London, which I'm very fortunate.
Really? Yeah. So schools are open there because I know you guys have handled this better than say America.
Well, apparently it's getting bad again, but so far, yes, schools are open, and I thank God every day for the fact that I get to go drop her off and get things done. You know, for the beginning, from March, she was in Zoom school, and it was really challenging. It's challenging for everybody. It's, you know, she was young enough that she needed full support, and I had a million ideas of things I wanted to do. I was going to become completely autodidactic and learn a new language, and I, baked bread and became a teacher. That was about it. All of my best laid plans gone to waste. But no, I've read a lot, which I love doing. I haven't watched a ton of things. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading.
Go back and watch Interview. I'm telling you.
It's really good.
Plenty of others on the list before that one. Yeah, mine will be last on the list. So there's a ton of things I'm looking forward to watching.
When you said there were things of yours you hadn't seen, is that just, do you not like watching yourself, or is it just you get too much in your own head?
I don't know. I think, yeah, it's not the most comfortable space. It's sort of out of my hands by that point. I think if enough people have seen something and said it's great and you should watch it, I'll struggle through, but it's not that I'm sitting there going, ooh. Whereas I do know actors that find that experience really helpful and useful and are in the edit and sort of watching rough cuts. And I haven't done that, but I think as I become more involved in producing and directing and that sort of side of things, I think there is probably something to learn from being around that stage of development of a film.
And you mentioned you're getting ready to go back on set and start shooting something. I mean, are you trepidatious at all about that, or is it exciting, or maybe both?
I can't wait. I just can't wait. Yeah. I think I would do anything that anybody offered me at this point, but I'm fortunate that I'm actually doing something fantastic. That was supposed to shoot June, July, August in London, and then obviously with COVID got pushed, hence the last minute move and all of that. I can't wait to be back on a set doing what I do. But yes, I think the director's in full PPE. There's 3 COVID tests a week. It's, you're kind of in a bubble once you start shooting. I'm also living with a child who's going to school with 400 other kids every day, so I don't know how I'm not going to get COVID at some point, but they've extended the shoot time in order to kind of buffer for those moments. And it's just, I feel extremely fortunate to have something to go and do.
Can you tell us what you're shooting, or is it secret for now?
No, it's a 6-hour Netflix limited series called Anatomy of a Scandal, and David E. Kelly has written it. It's being directed by S.J. Clarkson, and it's a very kind of intense drama about, I'm the wife of an MP who is accused of a sexual assault, and the trial and what kind of goes on beneath that. Who are the people? What is rape? You know, who are these people involved in this story? And it's Michelle Dockery and me and Rupert Friend and an amazing group, the team that did Big Little Lies. So it's, you know, it's 6 hours of kind of gritty, very well written television.
Is it based on a true story? Are you playing a real person, or is it fictional?
I'm not. It's based on a very successful novel by a writer named Sarah Vaughan. And it's when you read the book, it makes total sense that they're making a series out of this. It's incredibly cinematic, and I think incredibly timely in terms of Me Too and what is rape, and sort of analyzing these things. In what way, as this man's wife, am I complicit in the things that I've allowed or tolerated? You know, it really gets to the heart of some of the most current topics that we're dealing with as women today. So I'm excited. Yeah.
And before we go, I just sort of love to know, I know it's probably hard to narrow down, but what do you feel has been your most challenging role?
In terms of the most kind of grueling experience, Wonder Darkly. It was the hardest thing I've done, because I think the confusion that she's in, the grief that she's in, the kind of U-turns that she has to make, it was just relentless and disorienting, and that kind of by osmosis trickled in, and I felt like my whole and the hours we were working, you know, it being a very small independent film, that was probably the hardest. But you know, it's always the way, the things that are the most challenging tend to kind of work. So yeah,
and are the most rewarding sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're done with a character like that, do you have any kind of you know, tradition to sort of like purge yourself of them, and you know, maybe you go to a spa, or no, it sounds like you go right back to work actually.
No, I sometimes go back to work. I tend to have to go straight into full mama mode, because you know, when you're doing night shoots, and I've really tried to make that work. But I have gone back to back projects, but I tend to just focus on mothering. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing about having children is I feel like you can't take your work home as much as maybe you did in the past, because they're not going to put up with that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've sort of done bedtime stories in funny voices, and she's like, you can start talking that way once you get in the car to go to work, but when you come home, no, I want mama. But it's fun for a child. As she's got older, it's got easier. She always comes to set and sort of loves that world. It's fun for a kid. I mean, what I probably need after these experiences is a week in a spa, but my daughter would be furious. Bye, I'm off. Yeah.
I love how kids are never impressed by their parents, you know, what they do, or it keeps you grounded.
I also need to do something that isn't R-rated or incredibly intense that she can actually watch. She's never seen me in anything.
Really?
Yeah, I need
what
to.
What about Stardust?
She's seen Stardust, that's true.
She has seen Stardust. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was just like racking my brain. Yeah, I guess children's movie next.
I know, yeah, or a voiceover for animation. We're saying we're putting it out there.
That would be amazing. Right after you do Measure for Measure. Well, I want to remind everyone watching at home that if you haven't already, you should check out Wander Darkly. It is playing at the film festival. It's such a special movie. I want to thank you so much for being here today, and congratulations on another fantastic performance.
Thank you, Jenelle. Nice talking to you. Thank you, everyone.
You too.